Trev's Hockey Show. I'm the Trev. It's too sweet. Anyway, continuing on with my review of every outdoor game played in the NHL. And today, we're talking about the 20th outdoor game in league history. So we're almost halfway there. Almost caught right up. But this is also the first outdoor game without a Winter Classic, a Heritage Classic, or a Stadium Series tag in front of it. So thus, this makes it a completely independent outdoor game from its usual outdoor game counterparts, if you want to look at it that way. This game is also the first of 4 games played in 2017, but it's also the second game for the 2016-17 season. And the uniqueness of this one too is it's also a rematch from the big one in the big house, the 2014 Winter Classic. So today we're going to talk about the Centennial Classic, which saw the Toronto Maple Leafs hosting the Detroit Red Wings. So let's talk about it. Alright, so the Centennial Classic was played on January 1st, 2017 at BMO Field in Toronto, Ontario, which is home of the CFL's Toronto Argonauts and Toronto FC of Major League Soccer. Now, the game itself was announced on March 9th, 2016, and served as more of a celebration for not just the Toronto Maple Leafs and their centennial season, but also a celebration of the NHL's centennial season as well. Gotta remember, they go hand in hand. Toronto was the league's first real expansion team. There's that. Initially, the NHL considered having this game serve as the 2017 Winter Classic, which would have seen the Maple Leafs play the New York Rangers, but the decision was made to have a 2014 Winter Classic rematch, mostly for the idea of having a local audience, which appealed just a bit more. Now, BMO Field is not necessarily the biggest stadium in terms of having a large attendance, as it normally seats only 28,180 only. But thanks to BMO hosting the 104th Grey Cup in November, as well as hosting the 2016 MLS Cup in December, extra seating was put in place for both events. And conveniently, being the third major event at BMO Field in the last 3 months, the extra seating was conveniently left over for this game, which brought the attendance to 40,148 spectators, which in terms of attendance, while it's still impressive, made it the third lowest attended outdoor game to this date. But it still managed to sell out the arena, which is always the end goal, right? Right. So temperature at game time was 3 degrees Celsius or 37 Fahrenheit if you speak American. Now, for the Maple Leafs, this is their second outdoor game, and again, playing at the big one at the big house in 2014. So really the only outdoor opponent Toronto has ever known is Detroit. Don't worry, that will change in time. For the Red Wings, this is their 4th outdoor game, as well as their second in 2 years, previously playing in the 2000 Stadium Series, plus the big one at the big house, and the 2009 Winter Classic. And overall, their record isn't bad at this point. But with all that being said, let's talk about the rosters. So for Toronto, the roster from 2014 is pretty much depleted, as in it's not the entirely same roster it ever was. The only real leftovers from that game were James Van Riemsdyk, Tyler Bozak, Nazem Kadri, Morgan Riley, and Jake Gardiner. That's it. Everybody else is new to the team or rookies. Now, Frederik Andersen starts this game, and at this point in time, the Maple Leafs are coached by Mike Babcock. Now, as for the jersey, I can't say this is a bad jersey at all. I mean, it's your typical Maple Leafs jersey, just with a great big white stripe in the middle, which goes all the way around and goes into the arms, but also has that silver trim for the 100th anniversary or for the Centennial. All in all, not a bad look. When it comes to the outdoor games that aren't your typical Winter Heritage Stadium Series games, these ones are pretty nice. Let's talk about Detroit. So for Detroit, this is essentially almost the same roster as the 2016 Stadium Series. I mean, there's a lot of names missing, but there's a lot of names that stayed put. Gustav Nyquist, Riley Sheehan, Thomas Tatar, Henrik Zetterberg, Luke Glendening. I know I just totally butchered that, but that's beside the point. Jonathan Eriksson, Nicholas Kronwall, Danny DeKaiser, Dylan Larkin, and Andre Athanasiou, all making returns to the outdoor game. Peter Mrazek is your backup. I mean, I think he played in one of their outdoor games. But anyway, Mrazek's your backup. Jared Coro is your starter. And the Red Wings are coached at this point by Jeff Blashill. Now, as for their jerseys, I can't be mad at this. I mean, it's your basic Red Wings logo, as much as the Maple Leafs logo was just the basic Maple Leafs logo. But the biggest difference that separates this jersey from any other jersey is it's not red down the arms, and there's not just one solid bar in the middle. You're celebrating bars here. You got 2 bars on the middle and 3 on the sleeve, plus the silver trim celebrating the Centennial. All in all, this is a pretty classy Detroit jersey. So, with all the yards covered, let's talk about this game. Alright, so within the first minute of this game, we get our first drop of ink on the score sheet, but not for any goals, unfortunately. Toronto would get the first power play of the game, as Brendan Smith would get called for tripping at 49 seconds. So right off the hop, let's just give him a power play, right? Right. But after 2 minutes on that power play, we went right back to 5-on-5 with no results to speak of. Now, there was some good opportunities to change that, but it was still Anderson and Coro keeping everything out. I mean everything. And as much as I don't want to say it this early in the video, that's all there is to say about this first period. I mean, lots of opportunities. There was some shots, but it was essentially just feeling out the ice, getting the feel of the surface, and letting the goalies do their thing. Now, Toronto would outshoot the Red Wings 10-9. So, like I said, pretty close first, just not much to speak of. Kind of unfortunate, but let's move on to the second. Well, I can say with some degree of confidence that the second was a little bit busier than the first, but not much in the way of the goal department, I'm afraid. Now, the second did start out much like the first, in the sense that the power play got to work early, as William Nylander would give the Red Wings their first power play of the game, when he would get called for holding the stick at 1:26. So, kind of returned the favor. Like, Detroit got the power play early, or Toronto got the power play early, and now Detroit gets the power play early. But, again, when you want to talk power play in this game, see how the first power play went, and you'll understand. What I'm trying to say here is it really didn't amount to much other than shots. Now, we would get our first goal of the game just after the 5-minute mark, as Anthony Mantha would score his 8th on the season off of a point shot that made its way past Anderson from Zetterberg and Tatar at 5:33 for the 1-0 lead. So, always a good thing to get that first goal of the game out of the way. And to keep the momentum going, the Red Wings would get another power play 18 seconds later, as Connor Brown would get called for hooking at 5:51. But again, see my previous statements about power plays, in this game anyway. After a few minutes and a few shots later, the Red Wings would give the Maple Leafs another power play, as Nick Jensen would get called for holding at 10:15. So instead of me saying the power play amounted to nothing, I can tell you that this power play wouldn't last very long, as the Maple Leafs would get called for too many men on the ice at 11:35. But this is the point where I say, power plays don't mean a whole lot in this game. From this point, though, it's all Anderson and Coro, much like the first. So, with only a couple of opportunities, we end the second with the Red Wings holding the 1-0 lead. Now, the Red Wings would also lead in shots, 9-7. Now, well, it was still kind of quiet on the score sheet. Now, for goals, anyway. It's always a treat to see good goalie showdown, and you can never be mad about that. But there's still a third period to discuss, so let's do just that. So, spoiler alert, this is essentially where the game becomes a game. And like the first two periods, we start early. Only this time we're not starting with penalties. Leo Komarov would get the Maple Leafs on the board, scoring his sixth of the season off a tip-in from Jake Gardiner and Willie Nylander at 1:23 to tie this game at 1. So, in the case of Komarov, it's always a good decision to be parked in front of the net. You can never go wrong with that. Our only penalty of this period will come at 3:25 when Steve Ott and Matt Martin would each get 5 for fighting. So, Detroit was doing what they could to get the momentum swinging their way, but the Maple Leafs made their shots count, as Mitch Marner scored his 9th of the season off a point shot in front of Coro from Riley and Van Riemsdyk at 8:23 to give Toronto the 2-1 lead. I mean, really, he was essentially just allowed to walk in and take that shot. So that always helps. 1 minute and 11 seconds later, Toronto would extend that lead as Connor Brown would score his 7th on a shot from the side of Coro from Hyman and Carrick at 9:34 for the 3-1 lead. And then 2 minutes and 31 seconds after that, Austin Matthews would add to that lead, scoring his 19th of the year off a shot from a 3-on-1 rush from Brown and Hyman for the 4-1 lead for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So if we're doing the math, that's 3 goals in 3 minutes and 42 seconds. That's awesome. But some 51 seconds after that, the Red Wings would start to close that gap, as Jonathan Ericsson would score his first on the year off a snapshot from the point from Mantha and Ouellette to cut the lead in half with a 4-2 score. And we're already at 5 goals at this period, with 4 of them in a span of less than 5 minutes. I told you, this is where the game becomes a game. But essentially from this point, it's all Detroit, basically throwing anything there that they could throw at Anderson and hoping it would pay off. And one of them did pay off late, as Dylan Larkin would score his 11th on the year off of a simple shot in front of Anderson from Zetterberg and Tatar at 18:14 for a 4-3 game. So, do you believe in miracles? So less than 2 minutes to go. We've got a good game here, though. So as time is winding down, Detroit is still making their push and would tie that game very late, as Anthony Mantha would score his 9th, or his 2nd of the game if you want to look at it from that, off of a snapshot with a crowd in front from Zetterberg and Vanek at 19:58 to tie the game at 4. Now, this did go to video review, not just for the possibility of goaltender interference, but also for time purposes. Like I said, 19:58. That's pretty damn late. But this would eventually be called a good goal with no interference and 2 seconds left to go to give us the 4-4 tie. And much like the 2014 Winter Classic, we're going overtime. Now, the beauty of this period was Detroit would outshoot Toronto 17-7. Now, I wasn't kidding when I said it was all Detroit in this period. And the 7 goals in this third period definitely set an outdoor game record for most goals scored in a period. Now, if this game would have ended at 4-2 or even 4-3, I would have still been saying this was a great game. But can we go into overtime? Well, this just makes it better. So let's get to that. So 3-on-3 hockey for the next 5 minutes for the 4th time in outdoor game history. Now, the last time these two teams met in an outdoor game, we went to a shootout. And one could have thought we were having a repeat of 2014 with the way overtime was going. But Austin Matthews had other ideas, scoring his 20th of the year or his 2nd of the game off of a backhand on a rebound from Gardner and Brown at 3:40 for the 5-4 Maple Leafs win. Let's just think, another 1 minute and 20 seconds, we would have had a repeat of 2014. I don't know if that would have been awesome, or if it was better ending in overtime, but we were that much closer to another shootout between these two teams. Now, the Maple Leafs would outshoot the Red Wings 4-2 in overtime, but the Red Wings would outshoot the Maple Leafs overall in this game 37-28. Now, I did say this was a great game not even 2 minutes ago, and for a way to kick off two centennial anniversary games, I think one couldn't have written a better one for this game to go. And with the win, the Maple Leafs became the sixth team to win an outdoor game on home ice. 6 times in 20 games. That's not good for the home team. Just putting that out there. Now, one would ultimately think that was either how a team plays or luck instead of relying on home ice advantage, but this was still a great game regardless. I mean, 3 players had 3-point games. 4 players had 2-point games. And the most goals scored in the third period in any outdoor game. That's, like I said, the third period was the game, essentially. The first 2 were just a warm-up. I mean, what could one want more out of this game? I mean, you almost had a blowout. You had a tie, a comeback tie that, should have never happened for one. Plus, they also had, 5 goals in 5 minutes. Pretty solid game, I would say. But let me know your thoughts on the NHL Centennial Classic. Says another one of them Trev's hockey shows. I want to thank you for tuning in. Don't think I don't appreciate the gesture, especially if you've made it to this point. And if you have made it to this point, well, hey, I'm glad you stuck around to watch the entire thing. That helps out my watch time, so that's a great thing. I'm not gonna say anything bad about that. But since you're here, I mean, if you're digging my stuff, you just want to say hey, or if you have made it to this point, feel free to give me a thumbs up. I hope I've earned it. If you want to, that red button that says subscribe all over it, come on, you know you want to. I know you want to. The algorithm knows you want to. And we're like a hair away from 300. The goal is obviously, as I said time and time again, is to get 500 by the end of the year. And who knows, we can make that happen. But hit that subscribe button. It'll make you feel good. It'll make me feel good. Who doesn't want to feel good, right? If you want to, that link in my description below, that'll take you to my Facebook page. Feel free to join me there. I'd love to build an audience there. It's free, and it'll help me interact more on that page too. So can never go wrong with that. Now, but as far as outdoor games is concerned, well, our next outdoor game came the day after this one, that being the 2017 Winter Classic. But we'll talk about that when we get there. Either way, in the meantime, in between time, be looking for you. So, Trev, data.